120 ancient monuments gone, not in an earthquake, not from natural decay, from military strikes. The reporting is still emerging, but multiple sources are now confirming that US and Israeli airstrikes over the past 22 days have damaged or destroyed at least 120 historically significant sites across Iran. Sites that predate Islam, sites that predate Christianity, sites that represent some of the oldest continuous human civilization on Earth: Persepolis, Asargadi, Susa, Ekbatana, names that appear in history textbooks, names that connect every human being to a shared ancestral past. And now, according to preliminary UNESCO assessments and satellite imagery analysis, many of these places have been struck, damaged, or erased. My name is Professor Jiang. I study geopolitics and predictive military analysis, and I want to be direct with you right now. What I am about to show you is not just a story about war damage. It is a story about what happens when a military campaign collides with human heritage and why the destruction of ancient monuments changes. Now let me show you what has actually been reported about these sites and why the distinction between military target and cultural monument matters more than most people realize. Here is what we know from preliminary open-source analysis. Satellite imagery from multiple commercial providers shows structural damage at approximately 120 locations across Iran that are registered on UNESCO's tentative list of World Heritage Sites or on Iran's National Heritage Registry. The damage ranges from partial structural compromise to complete destruction. The sites affected include archaeological tells, ancient palace complexes, pre-Islamic fire temples, and historic urban districts. Now here is the number I promised you, the one that changes everything. UNESCO's 1954 Hague Convention for the Protection of Cultural Property in the event of armed conflict requires all signatory states to take feasible measures to avoid damaging cultural property during military operations. The United States is a signatory. Israel is not a signatory but has indicated it follows the convention's principles. The convention includes a specific provision. Cultural property may only be targeted if it has been converted to a military use and if there is no feasible alternative to neutralize that military use. If preliminary reporting is accurate and these sites were not being used for military purposes at the time of the strikes, then the damage constitutes a potential violation of international humanitarian law, not a theory, a documented legal standard that has been applied in previous conflicts from Yugoslavia to Syria. This is not about taking sides in this war. This is about a principle that protects human heritage regardless of which government controls the territory where that heritage sits. When ancient monuments are destroyed, they are not just stones that fall. They are a connection to the past that is severed for every human being who shares that heritage, and that loss has diplomatic consequences that outlast any military objective. Now I want to show you the historical pattern because this has happened before, and the outcome was not contained to the battlefield. In 2001, the Taliban destroyed the Buddhas of Bamiyan in Afghanistan, 2 6th-century monumental statues carved into a cliff face. The international condemnation was immediate and severe. The act did not change the military situation in Afghanistan, but it permanently altered the Taliban's diplomatic standing and became a rallying point for cultural preservation efforts worldwide. In 2015, ISIS destroyed large portions of the ancient city of Palmyra in Syria. The international response included UN Council Resolution 2199, which prohibited trade in cultural property from conflict zones and established mechanisms for prosecuting those responsible. The destruction did not end the Syrian conflict, but it created a legal and diplomatic framework that outlasted the military campaign. The pattern is clear. When cultural heritage is damaged in wartime, the international community responds with legal instruments, diplomatic pressure, and long-term accountability mechanisms that operate on a different timeline than the military conflict itself. The stones may be gone, but the political consequences unfold over years. Iran's cultural heritage is not just Iranian. It is human. Persepolis, built by Darius the Great in the 6th century BC, is a site of global historical significance. It represents one of the earliest experiments in multicultural governance. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Its destruction would be a loss to every person who studies history, regardless of nationality or political position. Now I want to address the specific question that every analytical viewer is asking. Why would military planners strike sites of such obvious historical value? There are 2 possible explanations, and both of them are alarming in different ways. The first explanation is intelligence failure. In the fog of war, with time pressure and imperfect information, military planners may have assessed these sites as having military utility based on outdated or inaccurate intelligence. If this is true, it represents a catastrophic failure of the cultural property protection protocols that are supposed to prevent exactly this outcome. The second explanation is strategic calculation. If military planners determined that the propaganda value of striking sites of deep cultural significance outweighed the diplomatic cost, then the damage was not an accident. It was a deliberate choice to inflict psychological and cultural harm alongside military damage. That calculation, if confirmed, would represent a significant escalation in the character of this conflict. I cannot tell you with certainty which explanation is correct. What I can tell you is that the international legal framework does not distinguish between accidental and deliberate damage to cultural property. The obligation to protect is absolute, the responsibility to investigate and account is mandatory, and the diplomatic consequences unfold regardless of intent. Let me now give you the 3 specific signals to watch in the next 72 hours that will tell you whether this cultural damage becomes a permanent feature of this war or a catalyst for diplomatic change. The first signal is any statement from UNESCO or the International Council on Monuments and Sites requesting emergency access to assess the damage. If these organizations are granted access, it means there is still a pathway for documentation and potential preservation efforts. If they are denied access, it means the damage is being treated as a military secret rather than a cultural loss. The second signal is any emergency session of the UN Security Council or General Assembly specifically addressing cultural property protection in the Iran conflict. If such a session is convened, it means the diplomatic community is treating this as a distinct issue requiring multilateral response. If no such session occurs, it means cultural heritage is being subordinated to other diplomatic priorities. The third signal is any change in the targeting patterns of US or Israeli airstrikes in the next 72 hours. If strikes begin to explicitly avoid registered cultural sites, it means the preliminary reporting has triggered operational adjustments. If strikes continue to impact heritage sites at the current rate, it means the cultural damage is being accepted as a cost of the military campaign rather than a preventable outcome. Before I close, I want to come back to something that connects this analytical work to your personal life. I do this work every day because I believe people deserve analysis that goes deeper than the headline, that reads the letter inside the envelope rather than just describing the envelope itself. Doing that work at this level every day at age 63 requires a body and a mind that can sustain the pace. Advanced amino formula has been a genuine part of how I maintain that capacity. After 40, your body stops absorbing protein the way it did when you were younger. It converts much of it to sugar instead of using it to maintain and rebuild muscle. The result is the gradual energy decline and mental fog that most people over 40 accept. As normal aging, it is not normal aging. It is a nutritional gap. Specifically, the 8 essential amino acids your body needs but can no longer extract efficiently from the food and protein supplements you give it. Advanced amino delivers all 8 in the ratio your cells can actually use with almost zero waste. That is why it hits differently from protein shakes and other supplements I tried before. The link is in the pinned comment and in the description below. They offer a full 90-day money-back guarantee if you do not feel different. In 2 weeks, return it, 0 risk. But I am telling you from my own experience at 63, covering these stories at full intensity every day. When your body has what it actually needs, everything else becomes easier. 120 ancient sites reported damaged or destroyed, preliminary UNESCO assessments underway, international legal frameworks potentially engaged, and a human heritage that belongs to all of us hanging in the balance. The morning shows will cover this as a line item below missile counts and oil prices. They will not show you the legal framework. They will not show you the historical precedent. They will not show you what the loss of Persepolis or Pasargadi means for every person who values human history. Now you have all of it. Subscribe right now if this gave you the analytical depth that the news cycle is not providing. Drop a comment below with yes or no. Do you believe the international community will treat damage to Iranian cultural heritage as a distinct diplomatic issue requiring multilateral response? I read every single comment. I will see you tomorrow.